welcome to Out of the Box Radio with me, your host, Christine Blasdale. Out of the Box Radio is a weekly podcast of audible ear candy dedicated to bringing a fresh perspective on this thing that we call life. And each and every week, we're going to be diving into the topics that matter most with lively conversations on issues such as health, wellness, and transformational healing, all with the goal of creating a better world and becoming a happier human being. I will be your tour guide for this epic adventure, and each and every week we're going to be embarking on a journey with the ultimate goal being transformation to our highest potential. And now, let's get out of the box. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Out of the Box Radio. I am your host, Christine Blasdale, and I am so happy that you tuned in today. We're going to have an incredible conversation with an awesome individual that I just recently met. Tim Ray is the founder and CEO of United Intentions, a nonprofit organization providing resources for individuals, schools, businesses, you name it, to create, track, and manifest their intentions and goals in life. I couldn't think of a better guest, and more importantly, I actually recently met Tim when I found myself sitting next to him, right next to him on a media panel at the very recent Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo. And we just had a really wonderful connection. We didn't even get to really talk that much, Tim, but I just felt a really great connection to you. So I wanted to have you on Out of the Box Radio to tell our listeners about what you're doing and what you're offering the world. And so that's why you're on. I want to welcome to Out of the Box Radio, Mr. Tim Ray. Welcome, Tim.
Oh, listen, Christine, thank you so much. I mean, what an honor to be here. And I have to say, you are an authentic soul. And I think that's why it's so important your message is getting out into the world these days because of that fact. And that's what's happening. We're seeing pretentiousness kind of fall off to the side. And people who are living the authentic life is now, when you say it's buzzword, but it's how we're shifting and how we're growing. And I love to see it because when you do finally kind of get it, that I have to just be myself. I can't be anybody else. You just leveled up, I call it. And all of a sudden your frequency, you start attracting people on that level and that similar frequency. And then before you know it, you're living this really exciting, unpredictable life. And you're like, wow, how'd this happen? And it was really because of just making that commitment to yourself, in my opinion.
Oh,
so thank you for that.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly, and I do believe that much like The Secret, which actually introduced a whole lot of people have issues. Some people have issues with The Secret, or folks who have maybe been doing this for a long time. They're like, oh, it's so commercial, or this that, and other than the fact of like saying, oh, I visualize that I'm driving in a sports car, $100,000 sports car. The idea that our thoughts, our intentions, our beliefs are extremely powerful, probably the most powerful thing that we have, that got out to a rather large audience in a way that needed to happen. And that's how I look at it. And that energy that you put out, even though if you feel like you're on an island, if you feel like maybe I'm the only person who feels this way or thinks this way, you're not, because that energy that you're putting out into the world is it's an energy. And so that energy is attracting other like energies. And that's why I think there was no mistake that you were sitting next to me at the Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo. And we were talking on that panel. It was a media panel. And I think it was about, what was it called? Shifting paradigms in media, something like that. So. Taking a look at, I think what's happening on the outside world, and I say the outside world versus the inner world because there's one thing that we have control over, and that is the inner world, our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions, our actions. And what happens on the outside world, for still a large amount of people, they tune into the news or they tune into other people to relay to them what they need to be concerned about. Right? And you have this incredible organization, and I love the name of it, United Intentions. And this is something that's really, I think, really powerful. Let's first of all tell our listeners a little bit about United Intentions and how you created it. What was the impetus of getting you going on that?
Well, I was just overwhelmed with negative thinking, stinking thinking, watching the news, watching the media, watching entertainment, whatever is going on being plugged in. I consider it more disinformation than anything, and even going around people and just negative people to whatever degree. And I realize now I was vibrating at that frequency, because everything is energy, as we know from science and vibration. And that to me was really kind of my beginning mode of realizing, wow, I got to do something about this. I can't be in the state of mind anymore, because it's killing me. And if you watch the news or watch society outside of ourselves for a long period of time, there's a certain level of paranoia that will creep in, as well as we're stuck in this sympathetic nervous system, constantly being bombarded with our cortisone and adrenaline, and it's just our immune system's on fire all the time, and it's way too much, and we got to find, I learned that we had to find salvation from within, go within ourselves to still ourselves and to realize, wow, there's much more to this than anything else. But the biggest thing, like you were talking about earlier, is with the United Intentions Foundation, I was either going to, like I said, at the Conscious Life Expo, I was going to build a bunker, or I was going to build a foundation to get myself out of this mess, this mindset, right? Yeah. And if we let this outside world, like you said, we don't have control over it. And we do to a certain degree. And I believe there's a formula in there. And not that I have the formula or other people have the formula, but I love experimentation. I love experimenting with ideas. And you mentioned The Secret. And The Secret, like a lot of people say, The Secret did this, didn't do that, whatever it may be. But the fact that it came out and it just opened up a whole nother level way of thinking for masses, it did its job, right? Now, one thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about is the subconscious mind aspect of it, and how really you and I are talking right now on radio, and it's 5% of our brain we're utilizing with each other consciously, and 95% of it's unconscious. So that's really in charge. Our subconscious is really in charge of creating our reality as we go forward. So if we have, like you said earlier about the $100,000 sports car, if you're like, man, I really want a Bugatti, right? And all of a sudden your subconscious mind say, well, idiot, you only deserve a Hyundai, Mm-hmm. And so you have two different intentions, right? And so which intention is going to win out? The one that's 30,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind is your subconscious. So the key to me, part of The Secret, is to sync your subconscious intention on one. Just pick one intention, because you have over 70,000 thoughts a day. Majority of them are negative and repetitive, as you know. So the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed, that's how many, on the average, thoughts are going through your head. And, so the odds are against you. We're living more of a nocebo life. So if you could just pick one intention out of that 70,000 thoughts and try to sync whatever you're subconsciously believing with what you're consciously intending, you have a better chance of actually manifesting something in your life through the law of attraction, through the understanding in the quantum physics that The Secret shares, than you would if you just bam, you take everything at one time and you say, I'm just going to feel better. Yeah, you feel better for like 5 minutes till something happens to you, and then all of a sudden you're back into the negative stinking thinking again. So that's part of what the United Intentions Foundation is. It's all about bringing awareness, awakening people to the power of their intentions, and going within themselves to still themselves to be able to see exactly what they're actually intended, not only on a conscious level, but perhaps on a below threshold level, and challenging that and trying to sync it in with what you're consciously wanting to create. So that was beginning why I started, and that's part of what we do at the foundation. But we outlay it in many different other ways. I mean, we have resources in the school education for Imagine If program, which is showing children from first grade to 12th grade how they could create their own reality. Can you imagine that if we learned that in first grade?
Oh my God.
Right? Where would we be today?
No, I went to a religious school and they said I was born in sin. The best I could do was to marry a doctor. But we still survived.
Yeah.
But today it's so neat because let me tell you something. Okay, when I grew up, when I was a kid, let's say I was born in '64. So late 60s, I was a kid, early 70s, kind of going through that whole thing. And it was such a different time. It was. I'm sure there was heinous things going around. The collective consciousness. I know that, I don't know how old you are, but I was born into.
I'm 49 and holding.
Okay. So you're a little younger. You're a little younger. But my generation, well, my generation, people around my age,
Our generation.
yeah, we were born into a collective sadness. Consciously or unconsciously, it was a collective sadness. And the collective sadness and shock to the system, and it was a trauma, was the assassination, the very public assassination of John F. Kennedy. And then it followed up, of course, by, the Bobby and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. And it was such literally an overkill that anyone who has half of a brain would look at that situation and look at what happened and say, oh my God, this was a public execution. And we were taught that from a very early age. And again, this was before I even came into the world, but the consciousness, right? The people, all of the millions of people who witnessed it and who experienced it, I know that it was a mind, a little F word, because it was a massive trauma, and it wasn't something that people could say, oh my gosh, this happened, and then they could say, well, this is why it happened, because there was a rogue element within the government, and maybe he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and it was supposed to, but they were lied to, and it was covered up, and it was meant to be this traumatic event.
It was a message.
It was a message. And what was that message, Tim? I know what the message was, but you tell us.
The message was very clear, loud and clear. If you try to get in the way of the New World Order and the elitists, we're going to take your head off.
Yes.
And that was the message for back then. And the message from all those other murders, as you said, was because they were just, and it wasn't like Kennedy and the whole Kennedy family wasn't involved in this, I call it the international banker big party here. And it goes much further than that, in my opinion. But I mean, for the average Joe out there, you could stop there, and that's what's enough mind-blowing to begin with,
Right.
You could get into the entity aspect of it later on, but at least you go any further than that, you lose people,
right.
At least in my experience. But, that was the message, and the message was the people who knew why he was killed got the message. Because, this network that we hear about, this kind of secret society network, it is humongous. It is everywhere in the country, in the world, I should say, and it's ran by very elite, very powerful people. And one thing we have to realize, from my perspective, you could build a bunker, you could collect all the guns you want in this world, but we're not going to be able to really win on their terms. I mean, when they're in charge, you're in charge, and you have to kind of look from a different perspective. And my perspective really feeds right back to what you were saying earlier, was uniting our intentions, because I do believe the power of intention, when I say intention, I more so call it connecting to source. You're connected into source. You're living an intentional life. You're living, God, goddess, all there is, whatever word you describe your spiritual belief system. And it's more of an experience, because I think when you start trying to define it, you probably lose its meaning. But once you tied into that, that is where their true power is. And when we unite that with other people, it doesn't matter, this 2%, 1% of the people out there, these elitists who are really manipulating on top of the monopoly game here, they can't touch that, especially when united. It's too powerful. And you don't even have to, go their level of collecting guns and strategizing on, how you're going to kill people or whatever it may be. You could just focus on raising our frequency, and raising our frequency is by thinking more, loving, positive thoughts and believing it, creating that state of being. And as we create that state of being, in my opinion, part of the foundation helps get the point across is you change other people's minds, or they either want to come up with you or they fall off of your reality. They're not even able to affect you anymore on that level. And so it's tough. It's tough when we're here in this three-dimensional world for a reason, and we see the suffering, we see the pain, we see the murders, we see the just wasted potential in human beings, children. I mean, it gets pretty ugly. And at the same time, we have this spiritual journey, the individual spiritual journey that we're on in this process. It almost seems contradictory in many ways, but I think as we go forward in it and we try to blend it, or maybe the word is we try to make sense of these two ways of viewing life, I think there is a happy medium, or there is a match there somewhere. I'm not there yet, but I'm sure trying. I'll tell you that right now, Christine.
Well, what I've learned is that the more you do come from that heart space, you do feel, and you're able to see a lie. You're able to see the intention. You feel it on a cellular level. And what I've come through is that because I've had near death experiences, I've had several, and the whole thing is, and I know I've had past lives and all of that stuff, is that there is a certain level of fearlessness in the fact that you know that no one can. You don't ever truly die. You know, you come back, and you come back, and it's all it literally is this beautiful drama that is placed before you. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, I know people can get very weighed down by the fact that there is these things going on in the world. These, however you look at them, negative, dark, people who are violent or greedy. Exhibiting behaviors that let's say you and I, Tim, cannot resonate with, could not even fathom, right? And what was very interesting in that dynamic was that she said that don't forget too that here on Earth there is a dark and a light. There is there are those polar opposites because we are given that opportunity. We're given choice. We're not mandated to do one thing or the other, and that is our choice. But when you realize that there is no truth, you cannot kill the soul. You cannot. My body is, I'll cut, I bleed. Eventually, there's a time clock on it, I guess. I don't know. And if your time clock is 24 years old or 105 years old, I don't know when my clock is supposed to be out on in this particular lifetime, but I've lived thousands of lifetimes, and I bring all those. That's the key. And I think this is the most exciting thing about that we're living in right now. The most exciting thing to me, Tim, is that we're able to tap into, for the first time, because if you talked about this 100 years ago, you'd probably be put into an insane asylum, right? But for the first time, we really are able to understand that we have had past lives, that we are much more than our physical body, that we are a soul that's inhabiting a physical body, a skin suit, so to speak. And it's really for the first time in our history as human beings that we can realize that there's so much more to us than what we just see in the mirror.
And thank God, Christine, and thank God that we don't know that for sure. Like if we knew the ending of the show, or we knew, this was all just a game, truly knew it 100%, boy, we'd be like, all right, well, we wouldn't experience all those levels of emotions from fear to hate to anger to love to joy. It reminds me of, you have to be a Twilight Zone fan if you grew up in that time period there too.
Twilight Zone and what was that other one that was really creepy?
It'll
come to me later.
I know what you're talking about. But there was an episode on there when this criminal guy, I know you probably know which one I'm talking about. He got killed, right? And he just woke up and he thought he was in heaven, and everything he wanted to do, he would get. So he would go up and goes, hey, I want to gamble, and all of a sudden he's gambling. He's winning all the time. I want some chorus girls, right? So he goes in and get all these beautiful chorus girls come in, and they just love him to death, right? So getting everything he wants. And he's like, this is kind of getting old. Let me go see what hell's like. This heaven is just not what I thought it would be. Right? He's got tired of it, and then of course the devil comes out and goes, you are in hell. So the fact that we don't know for sure, we have a good idea of that faith, yes, everything you just said is based on faith, knowing, and maybe a knowing that you have. But if you want to look at this three-dimensional world and look for the actual evidence, it's probably not there. So it really falls on faith and belief that we had these lives, we've had these experiences, and especially people who had NDEs like you, it's a little more solidified than perhaps most. But it's really, thank God we don't know. Thank God this is a play. Thank God I'm a character in this, and I'm scared of the New World Order and what they're going to do, and the satanic pedophilia and the network of SRA rituals going on that are much bigger than we realize, and all the presidents who are playing us, and they've never been loyal, and it's scary, and CIA watching. You got to watch what you say. I mean, all that is all part of this game, the Leela, as the Hindus say. And thank God that we don't know for sure, because think how boring it would be. Right?
Well, and it also it also shows you what you are not as well.
Yeah.
Is the thing. And I do have some friends that get so wrapped up in everything, and they literally worry themselves to death. They say, but Christine, what about the New World Order and the Illuminati? And oh my God, what about the chemtrails? They're spraying us with this stuff. What's going to happen with that? And they're poisoning the water and then the food and da. And I said, do you understand too that fear, because it's fear, that fear is also having a humongous impact on your life, on your well-being, on your decisions.
Yeah. Because
it's not just on a subconscious level. It's not just on a conscious level. It's on a subconscious level or unconscious level. So, and if that's what you're talking about all the time, and how horrible it is, you're bringing in more of that, and you're allowing that to affect you.
Christine, you hit on the most important. I mean, it's brilliant. You hit on the most important piece, in my opinion, what you just said, because everything that we focus on, of course, we create more of, right? Whatever it may be. But at the same time, there's a balance there. I think we're here for a reason. We can't just assume, because when we just want to think positive thoughts all the time, so often what's motivation behind that is fear. So it's more so we got to look at our reality the way it is. We got to acknowledge the chemtrail. And then, like you say, not get lost in this, because if we're here to learn through contrast, we're to learn through pain, to learn through love, the duality of good and bad, right and wrong, negative and positive. But if we're here to learn and embrace darkness and whatever the case may be, then that's what we're here to learn, because the whole point is you're not going to find any answers outside of yourself. So perhaps if it's not GMOs tomorrow, and it's not the chemtrails yesterday, and it's not the vaccines, what the next 2 weeks, something else is going to come up to push us to go within ourselves to find our power of intention, our power of God, our power. Because I feel like it's all happening and pushing us. This collapse, this end of the world, this apocalyptic expectation in every movie we see and everything that we experience. I truly believe, and I hope I'm right, but I do believe this, that it's all to push us from outside identification to from within ourselves, and find us finally that we have this. This is the second coming. We have this power to create our reality. And once we are able to sink that subconscious, that 30,000 times more powerful belief system, and that be as strong as a knowing as our conscious belief on any intention, that's when I think we'll start manifesting hand over fist and start creating literally heaven on earth. And I think that's probably more, if I had to roll the dice and say the kind of the purpose why we're here, and all these negative things, and I call them crisis of perception of things, that's perhaps why we're being forced through all this, because you're not going to be able to resolve the GMOs. You're not going to be able to resolve the vaccines. And if something else comes back, it's like putting your finger in a dam, another sprout.
It's whack-a-mole. It's whack-a-mole. Yeah. It's always, it'll always be something, but you nailed it. What I'm finding is that obviously you're not going to stick your head in the sand and go, that doesn't exist. Everything's fine. Everything's perfect. But what it is that you can recognize it. And I've done shows. I've done shows on several different things, on vaccines, on chemtrails, on a lot of different issues, on the water and the food and all these things. But it's never from a place of powerlessness. It's a place of knowledge and education. And what I look at it is, and this is how I look at the whole thing, is that we are actually coming into that Christ consciousness, that God consciousness, right? And however you want to look at it, is if you want to look at it as somebody with a man with a robe and a beard, great, wonderful. That's not how I look at it.
The cloud.
It's an energy. It's an energy. It's a force, and it is what it is. It is the most beautiful, powerful energy. It is love. It is the epitomizing of pure, unconditional love, and the power that comes from that. And what I see is, like, I go, wow, they got to unleash all this shit on us to slow us down. That means that we're winning.
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 Absolutely. You hit it right on the nose.
That means that we're coming closer. We're coming so close as a consciousness, as a global consciousness. We're coming so close to the God consciousness or the Christ consciousness that they have to spray us. They gotta nuke us. They gotta. Oh my! It's like we're cockroaches, right? But we're super cockroaches. So when I do see a spray, when I see a plane flying overhead and it's spraying its thing, I'll document it. I'll take a picture of it, and I'll even share it with my friends. I go, by the way, this is. I go in and I take my colloidal silver spray. I beef up my immune system. I go through a little bit of a meditation, and then I look up at the things and I go, "Is that all you got?" I'm like, "Come on, B.
Oh, we're gonna be great. We're gonna be great friends. I can tell already.
Right? Is that all you got? Big can of Raid." Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is Out of the Box Radio, and my guest today is Mr. Tim Ray. He is the founder and CEO of United Intentions. It's a nonprofit organization providing resources for individuals, businesses, schools, you name it, different groups, to create and track and manifest their intentions and goals in life. And I was saying earlier that it was just a crazy kooky meeting where I was at the Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo speaking on a media panel, and Tim was sitting next to me. Tim, let's talk about that media panel, right? Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah, you start first, Christine.
Okay, well, we're not going to name any names, and we're not going to, I'm not into that. I'm not into like going, oh, that person said this, because that's so high school. But let's just say, I want to say that the audience was freaking on target. The audience was the one that was they were so on our level, Tim.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a good time to start talking partisan politics at that type of panel with that audience. The conscious.
The Democrats are going to save the day.
It's like, I think one time I did say, I'm like, who really thinks the presidents are in charge? They haven't been in charge since they blew off Kennedy's head, or you tried to, but I'm like, come on. They're like 7 layers down. They aren't running anything.
Global warming is bad. Okay? We got to do everything and anything we can to stop global warming. And our audience was just like,
I'm thinking, my God, these are the talking points for a CIA operative. You got to be kidding me, man. Are you serious? I'm like, God, really? Global warming's bad? You don't mention anything about chemtrails? Come on, give me a break.
No.
Anyway, but I had fun. I really did. And I was so grateful to be sitting next to you. I think at one point you said something like, I said, get it. You started talking about just, I think, getting a little spiritual on the entities, things like that. I'm like, yeah, we're going to get there eventually. You might as well come out of the closet now about it. Let's just do it. And, and that's a whole nother topic and whole nother conversation. But to me, it's just part of this, I call Tim Ray defining reality. And that's, one thing I've been doing all my life is trying to define what the hell am I here for? What is this? What is that? I mean, trying to understand how this works. And, I know how the penis works. I know how the mouth works, but what about like the world around me? I mean, it's just crazy that it's we're trying to navigate through this world and we don't know where we came from or where we're going. It's like, don't you think those are kind of important questions to ask? Help us with our journey here and give us a little more.
We were given no map. We came here naked, no map, slapped on the ass. They cut something. Bright lights, and then they shoot you up with vaccine. Oh yeah, it's rough. It's rough when you first get in here.
Yeah, let me tell you something. I've been, and I'm sure you probably hear a little bit about this, but I've been interviewing this lady, Lisa E. She's a high-level MK Ultra survivor. I'm doing a series on her. And you talk about rough. She has over 1,000 personalities, most of them fragments, a handful of personalities. She was tortured, and this SRA, this satanic ritual abuse, is for real, and it's a network. It is everywhere. This is why you see, like, with the Supreme Court justice, lack of investigation done for an autopsy, because they're all they put key people in these morgues, in the police departments, in our FBI. I mean, most of the organizations we already know, like people are in the know, like CDC, FDA. There's all all been compromised, and they not only compromise, but they lie, and they I don't even trust Whole Foods and all these companies. I don't trust them anymore, more to a degree, because everybody's so compromised, and there's no accountability. There's really no accountability whatsoever. And so, again, I think it's the greatest thing in the world. Why? Because, look, would we be talking about this right now? No, we'd probably be talking about knitting or something if everything was just going great, right? Or something, of no non-consequence. But, yeah, because this is going on, we're in a fight for our life. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, So whatever the government says they're going to do, and I really hate partisan politics, or if you're a certain group, you need to vote this way. If you're a certain, if you're different gender, you got to vote
all
this
corrupt.
way. Different race, you got to,
Yeah,
it is.
They're all corrupt. They're all, yeah.
And it's divide and conquer. And that's why the whole point of uniting intentions. But one thing you said earlier, I did wanted to mention this, was the integrative medicines, and how you do still stay connected to the real world, where you'll see the chemtrail and you understand the not philosophical, but the spiritual aspect, perhaps what this is happening, and how this is a great time to be alive, and you would miss this for the world, blah blah blah. But you still go back, and you know kind of what's going on, and you want to defend yourself, and it's not, I don't say fear based, it's more preparation based, because initially it's fear, but after a while you get to the point where you take your silver, you take your eating the food, and I don't know if you knew Kelly Gallagher was the host of that show there, of the panel that we did. And we started a company called Jam and Planet, which you're going to love this. And we actually hosted the Doctors Who Rock Awards. These are the world-renowned integrative doctors, Dr. Mercola, Dr. Sinatra, Dr. Cowden. I mean, we had, hundreds of doctors were in Orlando last year in November, and they had this Get Your Life Back program where they spoke to the public for the first time. Usually it was just the doctors training the doctors all these years. They finally came out of the closet. And this is after all the murdered doctors for the last 3-4 years, as I'm sure you're
That's a pretty brave thing to do. Yeah, yeah. We'll talk about that in a second too. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about it. But I mean that my point being is, what I mentioned is that you really have to stay engaged in the three-dimensional world here. Even though you realize you're a spiritual being having a human experience, you still have to wake up and put your shoes on. You still have to, drive your car to work, and you still have to, watch out for getting, putting your seatbelt on. I mean, you still have to have these moments of living this three-dimensional world, and ego. Ego's important. I always get a little off on when people talk about how you got to eliminate ego. No, ego, you got to balance it, because ego, from my perspective, is our external sensors. This is how we navigate through this three-dimensional world, through our smell, our touches, and of course, if you don't acknowledge your spiritual aspect, right, you get lost in your ego, and you can be very destructive. I get that. But we got to have it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to make it survive in this world. You could meditate all day long, but if you don't understand how to navigate in this world, then and you need that. You need your external sensors to do that. So I think that's a big piece of it, and I'm glad that you stay engaged, and you don't, like, a lot of, not woo woo, but a lot of the people will get like, oh, you don't need anything, you don't eat anything, you don't do anything, Don't worry about those kids being abused over there. You don't need to step in on that, because that's what they're here for. They wanted to have that experience. So just walk away. Don't get involved. Don't, to me, I'm like, no, man.
I believe that it's like, no, if that was brought to my attention, that's brought to my attention in order for me to stop it, to do something about it, or to help others in that respect. There's the things that pass through my, sight, right, through my view, if they come across my field, then it's there for a reason. And I ask constantly. I always ask whatever it is that I'm supposed to, and it's because of my job, what I do, right? So if I'm in media, if I'm in broadcasting, I just basically say whatever it is that is supposed to have, that is supposed to get out into the world, that I'm supposed to look at, that I'm supposed to see, that I'm supposed to get information out on. Please deliver it to me, and it does, and it does, and it's been a variety of different things. But the key is to not be overwhelmed by it. And when you actually find out a lot of these things that you, Tim, are privy to, that you understand, and through the work that you've done, the interviews that you've done, and the same with me, is that you realize, instead of getting so stressed out and overwhelmed and like, oh my God, this is so crazy, this shit is so fucking off the charts, this was like nightmare kind of stuff. Right. When you realize what the underlying, what it's all about, and it's emotion, it's energy, and we are little energy factories. Are we
Right.
not?
And it can't be destroyed, only transferred, right, or created. But Eckhart Tolle talks about that, and it's hard to digest. But if you look at it from this perspective, it kind of helps me understand a little bit better too. When you're seeing this type of abuse and just stuff that you like, could never cross my consciousness that somebody would do that to another human being, or even animals, right? But is they call it Leela, and it was like God laughs at humanity because there's no death, right? But yet we in this illusion perceive death, for whatever reason. I'm glad we do, and he uses the example like here you have fish out in the sea, they'll lay eggs, and millions of fish will be born, right? And within seconds, the majority of them are eaten by other fish and other things, right? No one ever cries for them. But God forbid you get your little kid and you go buy a Goldie at the local fish store, and Goldie's is and ends up swimming upside down. You got to have a funeral, and you got to have everyone's sad for the day, right?
Yeah.
So and so to me that's like the greatest example of identification with not humanity, but with matter and what we think physical, right? And are not believing in that there is no death, because and it's a process of sadness and of course losing something, but it's always like, oh my God, what's happened that poor person, rather than thinking really it's, oh my God, I'm going to miss that person. It's about me, and I think that kind of helps kind of put things in perspective is when you see a child or somebody being abused in front of you, innately wouldn't be happening. So you have a choice. You can either get assist, or sometimes you may not be able to assist. This depends on the circumstances. But are you going to be engaged? Are you going to not have compassion because you're just going to say, they created it. That's what they're supposed to experience. And to me, I think that's a rationalization. And I think what I call, and Teal Swan calls denial-based positive thinking. People have to be very careful about that, where you don't get lost in it. Like you said, you acknowledge it, but you don't lose yourself in it. You put it in a proper understanding, and you don't lose your compassion for humanity. And to me, that's the biggest lessons I've learned through the interviews and through just life is holding on to that compassion, even when, and trust me, I'm a Bronx boy and Jersey boy, and I kind of grew up tough in my own way, and I always was a maverick and always made things happen. But I don't, sometimes I don't have sympathy for certain people, what they do. I'm like, hey man, that was your screw up or whatever it may be. But as I get older, and the more I realize, well, they're just a squirrel in this world trying to get a nut too, and maybe throw a little compassion that way than I used to. And every year I think I get a little better at that.
Well, one thing that I have realized with so much that I have seen is that the idea too of eliciting response in people, that the human body, the human psyche, the brain, we are energy, right? We are creatures of energy, and that energy has a power, and we are like little batteries. We're little generators of electricity or energy, however you want to look at it.
Back to the Matrix.
Back to the Matrix, which is just like a plant, like just your regular house plant there is an energy about it. Even a chair has energy about it, right? It's just, break it down to science. But with that plant, there is an energy, so that, they've done studies too. If you take a cucumber, and you take the cucumber and you have electrodes on it, and you take the cucumber and you put it in boiling water, or you cut it, it has a reaction. And then when you go near another cucumber, if they're all hooked up with the same electrodes, they're thinking they remembered what happened to that other cucumber. So there's that anticipation, there's that trauma, there's that that energy. It's all energy, and human beings are superconductors of energy. We have so much power just by our minds, just by the power of our thoughts. And when you realize that there are those that are there to manipulate it, to play you like a violin, right? To get that energy flow, to exude that from you, and through all of those horrific things that people have done, for centuries. When you realize, though, that how powerful you are, then you take the power back, and you realize that's my goal. My goal is to try and show people, teach people, educate people that they have so much power.
Amen.
It's been taught out of them. It's never, everything in the school system that we have, and it doesn't matter where you are, if you're in Australia, if you're in America, if you're in the United Kingdom, our schooling is every single thing in our schooling is to squash that. Every single thing. And so from the beginning, from the very moment we come into the world, when we're said, are you a boy, are you a girl, are you this religion, are you that religion, for everything from the vaccines to the indoctrination of school and to religion, it is all about removing that power from you. But we are eternal. We are connected to Source. We are God. We are Christ. We are Buddha. Whatever you want to. We are the consciousness. And when you tap into that, oh my God, there's so much power in that. But we have been manipulated, and we've forgotten how incredibly powerful we are. We just think, yeah. Go ahead.
But not only that. I mean, they're destroying our critical thinking in schools. They're they're keeping everybody sick. When you're sick, you're fighting cancer. You're fighting. You're like, you really don't want to focus on like perhaps having fun and joy and being on a speedboat. You're just depressed. I mean, excuse me. So you got to keep people. You got to keep people sick and unhappy and miserable and
angry.
And angry and fighting with each other and hating that politician and hating that politician and hating that person. So you keep that state of that low vibrational state, right? Then you can manipulate. Then you don't. Then what's happening, and I find, is that you're creating their intentions. Now that's why I stopped watching the news years ago. I'm not watch any news. MSNBC, Fox News. I watch nothing.
Me too.
Purposely for the fact that when I wake in the morning, I tell myself, I'm creating Tim Ray news. This is the news I'm going to live by for today. Because when I'm tired of creating and manifesting other people's intentions, and that's all we do every day when we're watching something, and we take what they say to be true, and it could be the biggest lie. I mean, you put on any TV station, and it's just the biggest lie, right? And I usually just go the opposite of what they're saying. So if they're saying, put the guns away, I'm like, give more guns. If they're saying, you have to, take this pill, don't take the pill. So I'm about 90.
It's flu season. You need to get your vaccines. It's flu season.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, so the point is, think about it. When we take what they say to be true, we then manifest that for them, because then we manifest for ourselves. And then and we perpetuate this lie and this belief, all because we give our power, like you said so eloquently, is that we give our power over to others. And what we need to do is claim our power back.
It's rather simple, isn't it? And it's not a revolutionary act. You don't have to equip yourself with all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like you said, it's going back within.
Yeah.
Because within is all of it. That's why, like I said, it's actually a very exciting time. It's a kooky time too, but if you look at it as a play and that you really don't ever die, it's a lot easier to handle.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Look at it as like they say, you're in the movie theater, right? And the movie's about to be over. And then you go to another movie theater and you start a new movie, and that's just kind of the way it is. Be the observer in the movie, enjoy the play, enjoy the show. But at the same time, I'm so glad we're the men and women in the arena having the excitement of all not knowing we're in a play, or at least to some degree. Because although I will say this, Christine, that since I have come to that understanding that I am God in the sense of I'm essence of God, I'm the ripple in the ocean of God, right? I have all the essence of that, although I'm not the collective, or I'm not the God. I have parts of God in me, or the essence of God, all of God in that sense. That once you kind of realize that, and I don't think it's a false sense of control and power. I think it's a certain level of humility comes in, because you realize you're not all that. I think, when people get into that satanic belief, their, use your will, whatever, I think that's when they their ego takes over and they miss the boat. But once we know we're part of Source and we can live in Source and have fun in this three-dimensional world and do stupid things and play in the darkness for a little while until you get tired of it, or you shine light on it. And it's not the end of the world. You're not gonna burn in hell for the rest of your life, and it's about learning and growing and leveling up, as I call it. Then you know what? It's easier to navigate in this world that way, and it's more fun. I find it more fun and exciting, like you said. Right now, it's scary and exciting all in one to be alive today, if you look at it from that perspective. And I wouldn't miss this for the world, and I don't think you would either.
No, and like I said earlier, it's game on. You know, we're at the 4 yard line, fourth yard line, close to touchdown, and what's happened is that it's a full court press, whatever you want to call it, whatever kind of sports analogies you want to put it, is that we are so close, folks. Yeah. We are so close, and it's happening all over the world. And here's the thing, with all these lights, if you think about the globe, if you think about the world, if you think about all of these little lights going off, right? Shining, and people waking up to their power, to the power that they have in their thought, in their intention, in love. There is a great power in love. There is a great power. There's also a great power in hate. That energy has a power, and there's ramifications of it. Whatever it is that you're thinking, there is a ramification of it, because it's energy and it's real. But there are so many lights that are coming on right now that it is such an incredible time, and part of that is because of our communication. Listen, people are listening to this podcast, and back in the olden days, I'd have to stand up on a soapbox, and about 12 people in the town would come and listen, and somebody would probably accuse me of being a witch and like say she's got to burn at the stake because she's talking about stuff that's not godly. And everything I'm talking about is God.
Right.
But we're able to reach people, and especially with United Intentions. And I want you to get into that, because I want you to let people know before we go, too. I want you to let them know how they can get involved in all the stuff that you do with United Intentions. But this is amazing that we can do a show, and out of this program, people from all over the world can hear it, and then they can share it. They can get the show and they go, you know what? I liked what I heard. I really resonated with this. There's something about Tim, or there's something that Tim and Christine were talking about that I got goosebumps on. I really felt good about this. I want to share it with all my friends on social media, or I want to email it to this person or that person. That's a pretty amazing concept when you think about it. Just from over, let's say, 50 years ago, the difference.
Absolutely, and that's why things are shifting so fast. And I do agree with you. I think there's a lot more lights going on than going off right now. Just for the fact that most people don't realize it, because we're caught into this kind of mind control, entertainment, television, news type of process where if you just watch it, you think the world's coming to an end, right? So I agree wholeheartely, and I think thank God for the internet. Thank God for. And as they're trying to shut it down and make it harder to get the word out, I get it. That's their.
Then we'll start working on our telepathy skills, Tim.
I was about to say that. See, we're having a telepathic moment.
We are cockroaches. We will adapt. I'm telling you, we will freaking adapt. If you want to take away the internet, we will communicate telepathically. We'll be stronger.
I tell them, don't be messing with these sexy cockroaches, because we're sexy. I'll tell you that.
We
sexy
will survive.
Wins. No, I'll tell you, United Intentions Foundation, that's what we do. We have a free online site where you can have a community where you could go to. We're a 501c, where you could find like-minded people. You could learn. You post what you're grateful for. Post what your acts of kindness you witnessed or experienced or just received. You could post your what you're laughing about, or what you love, some things that you love about yourself or love about others, as well as learn how to create, track, and manifest intentions. And the great part about it, Christine, is that as you create an intention, as you meet new friends, kind of like-minded friends on that same level where you are, you help them create their intentions. Because you're going to focus on their intentions. You're going to see, you have a chance to put videos up of that one intention, to create a vision board for that one intention, to deal with your subconscious beliefs that may be blocking that one intention. And you share all this with your friends if you choose to, or just do it by yourself. You don't have to. But the point is, when two or more people come together in like-minded thought or prayer or united intention, then it's much more electromagnetically more powerful and exponentially powerful. That's the science right there for you. So it's a great little place to go, where if you're not feeling so good, or you want to kind of raise your game, or you want to experiment with creating intention, see how this law of attraction deal really works, you could go to it. So I'm really glad about that. I did want to mention,
throw out the website too for people.
Oh yeah, you go check it out, unitedintentions.org, unitedintentions.org, and it's a really cool place to hang out and just experiment. I wanted to say one thing about love real quick here. Dr. Sinatra and Dr. Cowden were talking. I was getting a story from Dr. Cowden when we were at Dr. Zarak. I know you weren't there. I don't know if you were there. Dr. Rock Awards, and they were saying, they're both cardiologists, and Stephen Sinatra's out of California there too. And they were saying, you know what? I don't think I've ever had a case where somebody had a heart attack that was in love. Out of all, and these guys seen a lot of thousands probably of cardiac arrests in their career, but so just think about the power of love, in reference to that, where that, how healing that is, and that's just a intimate love. Now you kind of broaden that to love of children, love of animals, love of world, love of life, love of self, right? Boy, you talk about, man, unstoppable, right? Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so much. I mean, I've been looking into the work that Dr. Brad Nelson has done. I don't know if you're familiar with the emotion code.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh! But the emotion code, and basically what it's, I encourage everybody and anybody to look it up, and I'm going to probably have Dr. Nelson on Out of the Box Radio soon. But the idea is that we have that any of our emotions that we've held on to, that we've buried perhaps, but that they have physical manifestations. So if you were, let's say before you were born and you were in your mother's womb, and your mother had a horrific marriage, and her husband was abusive, all those things, those impressions, those emotions are embedded. A lot of times we keep them with us. You could be 40, 50 years old, and you still have those embedded in you. It's unconscious. It's not something that you think about all the time. It's not even something that you even were aware of. Or if in your 20s someone broke your heart, you fell in love with someone and they cheated on you, or found out something about somebody, or something that you did to another person. Right. These things stay with us, and a lot of times they will manifest in a physical, some type of physical manifestation on us. And the emotion code is just absolutely brilliant, where it allows you to release those emotions, to track them down, to find out what they are, and then to release them. And the success that he has had, and he's training other people to do it. This is what I love about him, is because it's not just, hey, come to me and I'll heal you. That's not his thing at all. It's, hey, this has worked for a lot of my patients. I'm teaching them how to do it for themselves and their family and people all around the world. And it's shared. The information is shared so that, more and more people can do it. And it's really done out of love.
Listen, you hit it around the nose, Christine, because what you're doing is preventative. So before your emotional suppressed, repressed issue becomes a physical ailment, you're catching it then and releasing it in that tissue. So you don't get cancer, you don't get MS, you don't get Alzheimer's, whatever it may be, because and my understanding in integrative medicine, and I'll mention that real quick here, is every emotional thought, feeling, suppression or repression of an issue, or I should say every physical ailment that we have is manifested through the process of our emotional suppression and repressions. And so why not get to it ahead of time, like you're saying, and that's one thing I wanted to mention real quick here, is that what we did with the Doctors Who Rock Awards and Get Your Life Back Now series, we've had all those doctors. It's called emotional recall, the DNA associated to that. The top doctors in the world in integrative medicine, Mercola, Sinatra, Cowden, ranking, like I said earlier. We put DVDs together of them doing their presentation to the public over 20 hours of the most brilliant, never seen before information of not just dealing with, how to deal with cancer or MS or ALS, but actually cures and reversing Alzheimer's. I mean, this is unprecedented. And if people want to learn more about that, they should go to getyourlifebacknow.live. Getyourlifebacknow.live, and they could get that information that's not being given to you in the mainstream media, because they don't want to heal people. They want people sick, because that's how you make your money and, get Agenda 21 going and rocking.
Oh, yeah. There's so much money in illness. My God.
Yeah, it's sick. Yeah,
well, it's twofold. Like, and we were saying before earlier, and I hate saying they, because it's such a boogeyman, but
it's us.
But yeah,
it's
what
us.
it is that the idea is to make you feel helpless, and that you do not have any power in the situation. For millennia, for so long, it was religion, right? It was you have no, hey, God is going to tell you, God has a plan for you, and you're born in sin, so you might as well just realize nothing good is going to happen to you anyway. And if you need to talk to God, then you have to go through a priest or somebody, you have to pay us 10% of everything that you get because that's how it is. And so there's never been this there's never been this connection. And what it is that it is so frightening to the powers that be, to it's greed. Greed is evil, right? But we have so much power at our fingertips. We have so much power in our thoughts. It's just, to me, and Tim, you and I only know the tiny little scratch the surface of it.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's much deeper and much bigger than we even know. And that's fodder for another show. So I want to make sure that we have you back. Tim Ray, are we able to get you back on Out of the Box Radio? We could talk more about this.
Listen, we should do a show together ongoing. And I know you're coming on my show here soon enough. Jennifer should have reached out to you and got you set up. So
I will come on your show. Yes.
Absolutely. And let me tell you something. We have good chemistry. This is really good. And I think, we need to get our word out, and together, united, we are much more powerful, aren't we?
Word. Heard that. So to let people know too about all of the work that you've done, of course, you can find out more about Tim Ray at unitedintentions.org, and give out that website again. It was getyourlifebacknow.live. .live?
Yeah.
Okay. And that is and getyourlifebacknow.live. That is for all of the material on all these amazing doctors, right? That are very brave.
Oh yeah,
very
much so.
Very much so.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten into that whole thing.
Oh, it goes by so fast. I hate this. See, this is when this, by the way, is very powerful information that we talked about tonight. So we definitely need to be going forward and sharing more of this, because our energy levels are really, I think we peak with each other. So it's a good thing.
Oh, we will. With you being are you in Atlanta? Are you
Atlanta, baby.
Hot Atlanta. You in the South? Me in Cali. We got it. We got it. My guest today has been Tim Ray. Tim is the founder and CEO of United Intentions. You can find out more by going to unitedintentions.org. And of course, also please check out getyourlifebacknow.live. I want to thank you so much, Tim, for joining us today. And I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in to Out of the Box Radio. Remember, folks, if you don't want to miss an episode, you can subscribe to the podcast at iTunes or iHeartRadio, or better yet, I would suggest, if you want to, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Out of the Box Radio. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can actually get these shows and send them in emails or post them on your social media. That way everybody can hear the shows. And I want to thank you again, Tim, so much for coming on the show, and we'll have you back soon, my friend.
Christine, blessing. Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
All right. And I want to thank you so much again, listeners. Remember to tune in next week. And until then, always remember to think outside of the box. Bye for now.